Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Blue Book Records. In these lectures, I'll go over the Blue Book from start to finish. I'll go step by step as a kind of explanation, a comprehensive explanation of the Blue Book from start to finish. So in theory, you won't need to consult any other source for an explanation of the Blue Book. So here we go. The Blue Book. Structure and use of citations. So we provide citations to authorities to give readers help so they can identify authorities for future research. We also provide citations when we want to provide attribution or when we quote something. We also want to provide a citation when an assertion is contradicted by a source. So we provide citations to contradicting authority to be thorough in our research, to point out ideas that are in contradiction to our own assertions. So these citations come in two forms. We have a citation sentences and clauses. So in law review articles, all the citations go in the footnotes. And for citation sentences, the citations go in the body of the document. So for this, you'll want to see the blue pages in the Blue Book. So our citations have this number attached to them. It's called the footnote call number. Sometimes I just call it the footnote number. And it appears at the end of a sentence where there's an assertion or an authority contradicts the assertion. Now, it should appear at the end of the sentence if it relates to the entire sentence. But there's certain situations where you may have one or more than one assertion within a sentence where you need to put footnotes, more than one footnote in a sentence. And in this case, you would put the call number after the assertion as they come along in the sentence. Call numbers go after punctuation, except for dashes or colons. And there are examples in section 1.1. Now, sometimes a footnote contains an assertion that you have to provide support for. And in that situation, you'll put a citation sentence after that specific assertion. For a cited authority, we have these things called signals. Now, what are these signals? If there's no signal, then that means the cited authority directly addresses the proposition or identifies a quoted material. There's also a signal EG. And in this situation, the cited authority is good enough, but there are also other authorities that might be helpful. And sometimes we will use other signals along with the EG signal, like C or but C. This signal is italicized with a comma following it. And remember, the comma is italicized as well. The signal accord we use when two or more sources will support the assertion. So, for example, we might have one citation followed by an accord. C is also an introductory signal. But the difference between, and C is like no signal, but the difference is that although the cited authority doesn't directly support the assertion, it follows from it. So there's a step in between no signal and one that requires C. There's a logical step involved. Now we have C also. We use this when things start to get repetitive. We've already cited a source without a signal. We add other sources with the signal C also. And the Blue Book also encourages a parenthetical explanation after that. So the CF signal, we use this when the authority supports the assertion different than what we would kind of expect from a direct citation, but there is a sufficient amount of, or it's analogous enough to give it enough support. So it means compare. And the Blue Book recommends an explanation parenthetical, because readers might be wondering why you're using the CF for this particular source. So we also have signals that provide what the Blue Book calls useful comparison, right? So we have compare with, or compare this and this and this and this with this and this and this and this and this. you always have to use compare with a with. Again, readers might be confused why you're comparing these, why you're using this signal. So a parenthetical is encouraged. So now I mentioned that not all citations will directly help the assertion. There are some citations that will contradict the assertion. And we add those to be thorough. We don't want to hide competing theories about something. We want to add them. So, contra, this signal, we use this when the authority is in direct contradiction to the proposition. But C, in the same way, and it's analogous to the C. But CF, same. We use this is analogous to CF, but it's contrary. And just like CF, but CF, a parenthetical is encouraged. Now we have these signals that provide background information. This is the C generally. No comma. And this provides useful background information. Now, order of signals. We've discussed a lot of different signals. How do we know what the order of signals should be? So when we use more than one signal, the Blue Book states that the signals should appear in the order in which those signals are listed in Rule 1.2. Now, we also have the order of authorities within each signal. And these authorities are usually, they are separated by semicolons. And what the Blue Book recommends is there should be a logical manner in which those authorities are ordered. So for example, if one is more helpful than the other, that one should go first. Now, parenthetical information. So we use parenthetical information to explain a particular authority, the relevance of the authority. And it's especially helpful when its relevance isn't entirely clear, right? So you may use a source that's perfectly clear to you, or the logical inference is clear to you, but it may not be clear to the reader. So this is why we use parentheticals, right? Not everyone is understanding the author's logic and why the author may use one particular authority. So we use parentheticals to explain. And these parentheticals are phrases. And what's generally done is it's a present participial phrase, right? Or it could be a quoted section. We don't capitalize when we're using a phrase, a present participial phrase. And sometimes we will put a phrase quoting the authority. And if it's a sentence, then it should be capitalized at the beginning, using brackets if necessary, if it doesn't start with a word with a capital letter. Always indicate omissions in quoted material. And it should end with a period, quote, closing parentheses, and another period. Now, there's an order of parentheticals within a citation, and you should look at Rule 1.5b for those orders. It's very clear they have there. Now, related authority. So in related authority, we use this if it's helpful for the reader in locating the work. If it's not totally obvious in the primary citation. So, for example, we will use in as a rule if it's an article originally published in a volume, or it's a book with multiple articles. So we will cite the work with a comma, italicized in, and then usually if it's a book, right, we have small caps, and we cite it like we would a book, which we'll talk about shortly. We have what's reprinted in is also an option. So a work might reprint a source if it was originally elsewhere in another. We also have relevant history. So prior cases, the history of a case or a statute. And this sometimes is helpful for the reader to provide historical context. Sometimes it's required. And we'll look at that later in a different rule. So we also have these, what's called, if something is discussed, or rather, when locating the original source might be difficult. We may use something like quoted in, reviewed by, cited with approval in, questioned in, etc., to introduce the works. So, this is Rule 1. Background of the Blue Book, citations. structure, use of citations, signals, order of authorities within signals, parenthetical information, and related authority. We'll take a short break and go to rule number 2. Thank you.